Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as drama explodes around Joshua Zirkzee. Could he be heading out of Manchester United in January? There are a couple of hit pieces on him that have come in through the last 24 hours. Also, could Alvaro Fernandez be coming back? Do Manchester United need to sell to buy? Could it be one in, one out? Have Manchester United given up on Zirkzee already? Does he fit in with Amorim? We'll also be talking about a few bits about Amorim as well, a player that he might be looking at from Xery. Also, Phil Jones has been talking about what a difficult job Amorim will have to actually get his team playing the way he wants. He talks about how Van Gaal played a 3 at the back and they really struggled with it, and how in mid-season it's going to be very, very difficult. We'll talk about that. Also had a fantastic bit of information coming in from a Sporting fan that I do want to share if we've got time a little bit later in the show as well. But very welcome on the show this morning. Hopefully we are live. Let me know if we are, because my live chat, I've had a few problems this morning and there is a problem with my live chat here. So hopefully let me know if you can hear, because I don't know. I am live. Good. Okay. Downing Tools Bridge, says Mark Goatbridge, and Daylight Saving Bridge, says Kana Dave. Hilarious. Brilliant. Okay, let's get into the show. Lots to talk about. I want to talk off straight away talking about Joshua Zirkzee. Look, there's two stories here. And I suppose there's a third story about what you lot think. So basically, there are rumours going around that Man United might be ready to cash in on Joshua Zirkzee. There is interest in Italy. They could get their money back and utilise it in January. I find it preposterous. I find it incredible. I want to get a poll up and running. Would you sell Zirkzee? Simple as that. I mean, look, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I should have had this ready as well. Sorry, apologies. Would you sell Zirkzee? Yes or no? So, story came in from Neil Custis, who is regularly sat in press conferences for Manchester United for many years. He writes for The Sun, but he is in press conferences for Manchester United, and he has got stuff right in the past. He came out with an article last night basically saying that Ten Hag didn't want Zirkzee and was very disappointed with Zirkzee coming into training when they'd signed him overweight. Yes, weightism in 2024. Incredible. But look, straight away, I don't want to dwell on this article too long. The shirt makes everybody look overweight to start with. I've said that from the start. I don't think that Man United red top does anybody any favours. I doubt he was overweight. But look, I don't have any detail on that. But what we do know is that Erik Ten Hag had a veto. So we can't start rewriting history and pretending that he didn't when he did. He had a veto. If he didn't want Zirkzee, he could have said, I don't want Zirkzee. So he could have said the same about Agate, and he didn't. I think at the very least, Ten Hag maybe didn't want Zirkzee. Well, he didn't want Zirkzee as his first choice. And that is how journalism works. You say a manager doesn't want a player because they don't get their first choice. That doesn't mean he didn't want him. So I think straight away, the weight and Ten Hag didn't want him. Well, another way of looking at it is, even if Ten Hag didn't want him, Ineos did. And Ineos are still here and Ten Hag isn't. But look, we know United wanted Sesko, and we know we didn't get him because he didn't leave. So you've got to go to option 2. And Zirkzee was at least option 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. But to say that Ten Hag didn't want him would be ridiculous, because we know that Ten Hag had a veto. I think more interestingly was what a certain journalist from the Manchester Evening News had to say. We can call him by his real name if we want to, but this is what he had to say. Basically said the Premier League profitability and sustainability rules have actually encouraged longer contracts through the amortization practice as a player's fee is spread across the length of their contract. Zirkzee at 36 million is costing United a paltry 7.5 million a year in their accounts because they've spread it out. The problem is Zirkzee does not resemble a footballer, never mind a striker. There were more disbelieving sighs from the stands during his meek cameo against Chelsea, and it is now 1 goal in 15 games. It is not too early to conclude. United have to cut their losses on Zirkzee next year. Amorim's 3-4-3 formation requires a proven goal scorer. That is not Højlund or Zirkzee, so one of them has to make way. Zirkzee is the inferior frontman and the more economical investment. I mean, look, I can't speak on that. I mean, this journalist, is a journalist with an axe to grind, basically. I mean, the fact that he said that Rasmus is not a goal scorer is incredible. I mean, I thought, maybe somebody can correct me wrong here, but I thought you got your blue tick from journalism from actually going to university and reading about football in a book. You certainly don't get it from watching it, do you? I mean, Rasmus is not a goal scorer. You might want to look at service and conversion, because when he gets service, he scores goals, you absolute prat. So he's got it in for our strikers, absolutely, and he doesn't do any research. But the Zirkzee story is what we're talking about, and you know, that is very, very harsh to say that Zirkzee does not resemble a footballer, never mind a striker. I mean, I do have to keep saying this. Like, whatever you think about the player, he has only been here a couple of months. And to have the lead Manchester United writer for the Manchester Evening News, who has been close to Manchester United for decades, going back to the days of the Busby Babes, the lead Manchester United correspondent saying that the new signing doesn't resemble a footballer, let alone a striker. If that's not toxic, I don't know what is. I mean, is that what the Manchester Evening News wants to be writing about Manchester United new signings? I think it's bloody disgusting. Although people are entitled to an opinion, I think that particular journalist talks out his arse. But there's no doubt that Zirkzee hasn't had a good start at Manchester United, and the knives are out. And I don't really understand why, because he's not a Ten Hag signing. He's an Ineos signing. So with Ten Hag gone and the knives out for Zirkzee, where are we? Could Man United look to cash in January? Well, it's nearly 50-50 in the live chat at the moment as to whether you would sell him or not. I think it's very difficult to decide on any player whether they should go or not. And I got this amazing message from Pedro Eusebio, who is a United Stand follower, but a massive fan of Portugal. And he got involved with the United Stand when Mourinho came in, of course. And he basically has wrote War and Peace about Amorim to us. But he also did a list on players that he thinks won't work at Man United and players that he thinks will. And he said, on Zirkzee, non-existent position in the game model, difficulty in adapting to one of the wings. So basically saying that he doesn't think Zirkzee will fit into an Amorim system because from what he's seen. But I do think it probably is too low, if I'm being honest with you. And I think that regardless of how you dress it up, it will come down to what Amorim thinks. Do I think Man United would cash in on Zirkzee so soon? I don't know. I don't really know. I know that we've got a new manager in place now, and we do need to start looking at what we're going to do in January, what we're going to do in the summer. And we had to sell to buy in the summer. If you look at De Ligt and Mazraoui, that deal couldn't happen without Wan-Bissaka going to West Ham. If you look at Agate, that deal couldn't happen without McTominay going to Napoli. So it's very logical when you're thinking about let's bring players in. And there's a story about Alvaro Fernandez I want to talk about. And there's a story about Kvaratskhelia I want to talk about. But we probably do need to sell to buy. And if we do need to sell to buy, then how quickly can you sell a player? I'm conflicted on this because I just do not like how toxic it is around young players and new players at Manchester United. I mean, if you think these players are robots, you're a moron. Zirkzee himself has been criticised by some United fans because in the last couple of weeks, he's quoted Instagram posts negative about him, sort of mocking them, which is probably a coping mechanism. So he's not in a good place, is he? He's obviously aware of the criticism he's getting, and the criticism is harsh. If you don't think we have a role in that as United fans, then you're very, very naive. Now, you can choose to say he's total shit and probably bury the player. Or you can choose to, be patient and back the player. Ultimately, it depends on what Amorim decides. Because if Amorim decides there's a player there, then everybody who's going in on Zirkzee and saying he's a load of shit is going to look an idiot, and it's wasted energy trying to sink a player, isn't it? If Amorim comes in and says he ain't the right player for me, I never would have bought him, then he's probably going to be heading to the exit door. It can go one of two ways. He can turn it around and get really good, or he can head the road of Anthony, can't he, where it's just never been good. So I don't know which way it's going to go, but I do always try to back new signings, and I think that certainly when I see the way the media are behaving towards him and some of the horrible stuff that's been written in the last 24 hours by journalists who should know better but do not have the best interests of any Man United player or Manchester United at heart, then I think it's my job and the job of Man United fans to try and be supportive of a player that's barely even arrived. So, look, I hope he can turn it around, Zirkzee. But look, admittedly, he's not looking very good at the moment, but it will come down to Amorim. Now, if we are going to make signings in January, and there's talk of Alvaro Fernandez, I mean, I think yesterday, correct if I'm wrong, I did see a story from somebody to do with Benfica, because that's where Alvaro Fernandez is, saying they're very concerned that Man United are just going to come and take him back, especially now Amorim is at Manchester United. And they were almost saying it from a point of view that because Amorim is Sporting and Benfica are their rival, one of the first things Amorim will do is take Fernandez back to Manchester United because it'll piss Benfica off. I think we'll bring Alvaro Fernandez back because he's playing well and we've got a very cheap buyback clause on him. So, but if we're going to do that, it's going to be £16 million. Where is that £16 million coming from in January? Again, we need to sell, I think. So it'd be very interesting what we do. Baldwin says, would we not loan Zirkzee? I don't see why we would do that. Because you're just paying £34 million to loan somebody to somebody else to cover their wages. How to destroy a player 101. Sorry, MMA Takedown says, how to destroy a player 101. Well done, guys. Mate, look, maybe I'm not the right person to do this. I've certainly got, history myself of, going in on players, and I'm not going to hide from that. But we can all learn, just because you did something yesterday doesn't mean you do it today. Anybody can start, you might get up at 8 o'clock in the morning every day for the last 10 years. Tomorrow, you might start getting up at 7 o'clock for the rest of your life. Everybody can change. But my point really is, I really wish we could change. I really don't know I don't know what the reason is. You probably know more than me. You might be one of those people. I don't understand why, as I describe, some of our fans want to burn it down. I mean, there is no logic sitting there slagging off a new signing. There is absolutely none. We're balls deep financially on these players, and people are like, they're fucking shit. Let's get rid of them. Well, they're not going to get sold, are they? Not going to get sold, and there's not going to be any money to replace them. So it's absolutely logical. It's petulant at the end of the day, isn't it? We've all done it, but your dinner comes out, you don't like it, you're not getting anything else for a week, and you throw it in the bin. You're an idiot. You should eat it and try and make the best out of it, because logically, we're not getting rid of these new signings. But I mean, that's just a very, pragmatic way of looking at it. In reality, we're Manchester United, and Patrice Evra and Nemanja Vidic started terribly at Manchester United and became legends of the club. If you don't know the history, what are you moaning about? And I think there's something unique about a fan base that wants to support and nurture new players and give them a chance so that our conscience is clear at the end. I've given Anthony 2 years. 2 years I've backed Anthony. I'm not backing him anymore. I think he's had his chance. But, 2 years is a bloody long time. Some people don't want to give Zirkzee 2 months. Anyway, also, we mentioned Alvaro Fernandez there a little bit. Would I sell Zirkzee? Absolutely not. For whatever reason, and look, actually, I've just remembered something here. If you look at the summer, Alvaro Fernandez was sold. That's got Ineos fingerprints all over it. Zirkzee was signed. That's got Ineos fingerprints all over it. Agate was signed. That's got Ineos fingerprints all over it. Erik ten Hag is not here anymore. And Erik ten Hag didn't have control of transfers. He was one voice in a room of about 7. So if you want to sell Zirkzee, that's on Ineos. If you're not happy that we sold Alvaro Fernandez, that's on Ineos. If Agate turns out to be a flop, that's on Ineos. We've got to start, posing the question that if you want to sell Zirkzee, Why did Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox think he was such a good signing? They've obviously seen something there. What was it? If Ten Hag wasn't too sure about him and Amorim never bought him, what is it that Man United have seen in that player? And I don't think we've seen it yet. I think there is a player there. But I'll tell you what will piss me off the most. What will piss me off the most about Zirkzee is if he doesn't have the right character. Because that is something we've been talking about for about 4 or 5 years. Talent is fine, but what about the character? Because we've done this before with Jadon Sancho. The talent is clearly there. The character clearly isn't. So what are we doing if any of these players from the summer end up not having the right character to be a Man United player? Because I've seen people saying, Zirkzee interacting with Instagram, he looks like a rabbit in the headlights on the pitch. You know, maybe he doesn't have the character for Manchester United. I'm like, hold on a minute. Brailsford's just done a bloody strategic review. That was our biggest summer. It's their first summer. You're telling me they've gone and bought players again that might not have the character to be a Man United player. So I'd be very disappointed if Zirkzee fails because he doesn't have the right character, because that's something that we've done in the past, year on year, that Ineos knew we shouldn't be doing. So I'd be very surprised and very disappointed if Zirkzee doesn't have the strength of character to, you know, be a Manchester United player, because that's not acceptable. Like, none of these players that we're buying now can be like players of the past. You've got to, we know that Man United is a massive football club, and we know that it's, you know, there's a lot of focus there. Can we assess signings? We're so dysfunctional right now, says Patrick Lynch. Bob says, hi Mark, I visited Old Trafford for the first time at the weekend. I don't care what people thought of the performance. It was magical. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is a magical place. Harry Maguire says, Zirkzee's too slow though. He's basically Weghorst. I mean, I see no comparison to him and Weghorst, to be honest with you. Mads says, the other day you said there is no I in team. Some of these players have realised there's a me. Hope you're well. Glazers out, says Mads. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks for the super chats this morning. Just wanted to move it along a little bit, although actually just final little bit on transfers this morning. Obviously, we've spoken about the Zirkzee story. Alvaro Fernandez is still very much being mentioned. He would cost £16 million in January for Man United to bring him back. We're not hearing that Man United can't activate that for a year. I'd be very surprised if we can go and get him 6 months later for £16 million, but apparently we can. I would not be surprised if it comes out at some point that there is a clause that says you can't buy him in the first 12 months, but I've not heard anything about that. So the Alvaro Fernandez and the left-back situation at Man United, and the fact that he can play as a left wing-back as well, makes him very, very appealing. Another player that's been linked to Manchester United, which I think is quite interesting when we talk about Amorim's 3-4-3 system, and I'm going to go through some really interesting stuff that I got from this Sporting Lisbon fan shortly, but in a 3-4-3 system, what do you think about Napoli's Kvaratskhelia playing off the left-hand side or in behind the striker? He has been linked to Manchester United this morning as a potential Amorim target. Obviously, many people thought he would have left Napoli in the summer. Apparently, he's going to leave this summer. And apparently, Amorim would be very interested in him. This is coming in from Court Offside, where Fabrizio Romano and Ben Jacobs all work and do stuff for them as well. I mean, is that the sort of player that Man United need? I think that it's funny, I was doing my Man United career mode yesterday, and in no way, shape or form should this be a barometer for how you judge Manchester United's future under Amorim. But what I found is centre-back's fine, midfield pivot fine, up front fine, but if you and wingers and wing backs fine. It's the two positions in behind the striker where I think we're a little bit light, because yes, Bruno plays there, yes, Mount plays there if he's fit, and yes, you could try Ahmad, Garnacho or Rashford there, but it's not necessarily perfect. What about Napoli's McTominay, says Robert McCormack. It's funny, actually, because one of those positions for McTominay actually would have been very good. You're right, but he's gone. And also, let's not forget, Bruno Fernandez hasn't actually set the world on fire for about 8 months. So those two players in behind the striker, have we got the right profile of player for that? Is that the place that we're going to have to look at in relation to a centre attacking midfielder? once Amorim comes in. It was also interesting, I don't know whether anybody heard it at the weekend, I think Phil Jones was on Match of the Day 2 or something like that, and he was saying that basically Amorim needs time. He's going to need time because it will be very difficult and a very difficult job to get his 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 implemented, and it will take time. And he was basically saying that with the players Man United have got, oh my God, with the players Man United have got and the system they've played for the last few years, it's going to take a long time for them to get used to a new system. And he basically said that when Louis van Gaal was there and he was at Man United, Van Gaal went to this 3 centre-back system at one stage, and it took them ages to figure it out, like the distance between players, where you needed to be on the pitch. It's a whole new way of playing, and it's a fair point, It is a very fair point. We want to see 3-4-3 rocking from day one, but you're asking players that have been predominantly playing in a back four for a very long time to suddenly understand a brand new system in the highest level of football. It will take time. Phil Jones is right. It will take time and it will be difficult, and he will need patience, because you're playing against ridiculously well-drilled Premier League sides, whether it's Brentford, whether it's Nottingham Forest, whether it's Brighton, whether Arsenal, Man City, whatever. These are well-coached sides, and you're going to take an underperforming Man United side and basically rip up the rule book on formation and tactics and say we're not even playing with a flat back four anymore, we're playing with a 3-4-3, and every element, everybody's position is going to be different. Even the goalkeeper is going to be asked to do different things. Fullbacks, you might be centre-backs or wingers. Your number 10, you're going to have another one with you. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult, and it's going to take a lot of time. And I think Phil Jones is correct. And if we don't have patience, then we're going to have struggles. Now, I want to just talk about this because I'm just going to go through this. I mean, look, we spend a lot of time reading about journalists and stuff like this. I want to go through this from this Sporting Lisbon fan, Pedro, that sent us this. He said, basically, I've been a follower of the United Stand since the Mourinho days. I'm Portuguese, I live in Portugal, and I'm a massive supporter of Sporting. I wanted to just give you some information on Amorim from my side of things, because I think there is a lot in the press, but they're not picking up on a lot of other things as well. Basically, Amorim does not like to lose money that he can use on new signings. So selling players at low prices on the market, and secondly, because he's very confident that if a player adapts to the game model, this will increase his value and even justify his performance. So basically what he's saying is don't expect Amorim to come in and submit a list of players that need to be sold straight away. On the contrary, expect him to experiment and give a chance, even if it's a brief chance, to all players on the squad. So unfortunately, I don't agree with this, but this is the manager. He's got the right to do it. So basically what it's saying is that he will give everyone a reset. He will give everyone another chance. He will ignore the past and he will give them a chance. Now, I disagree with this, but most managers do. The reason I disagree with it is because every manager's done this, and every manager has given the same players another chance and been let down by those players, and then the manager loses their job. I would like to see a manager come in and look at the past and go, I'm not going to give these players a chance. But apparently Amorim is about that, and he will give everybody a chance. Some of you might quite like that. Only after he's given them a chance will he start making decisions. Another thing this is from Pedro, another thing I've seen that's widespread in the English press and even on the United Stand is the total lack of awareness of Amorim's added value as a coach. Contrary to what many imagine, this coach is not exactly a tactical genius. Expect major innovations in playing style, offensive or defensively, but Amorim has had the same game model since he started training at Casapier FC and will never change the base structure. He'll add nuances, especially with the arrival of new players, but he will obviously remain the same. So basically what we're saying is he's not an adaptive tactical genius. He has his way of playing and he will stick with it, rigidly. with little niches attached to it. So we should expect the 3-4-3. Goes on to say that Amorim is not a scientist of tactical designs and complex movements. He is a coach who believes in constantly repeating the same basic combinations to the point where players only know how to play that certain way. There is space to be creative, but slowly the players no longer need to invent the wheel on the field. They just need to repeat what they do in the thousands of hours of repetition they do in training. So basically, I would see that as a positive. Amorim knows the way he wants to play, and he is relentless with it. He doesn't want freestylers. He wants players to almost become robotic in the way that they play. So he's not an innovative coach in the sense that he's adaptive. This is how we play. This is what you do. You go out and do it. And that, I mean, you know, for these players, that might be quite a good way to play, because when you look at the criticisms of people not passing, etc., if they're not passing, they're not doing what he wants. Also goes to say that what he is a genius of is, you know, his system is very confident and it's very difficult to beat once it's up and running. Amorim is a fabulous builder of team spirit. He knows how to absolutely motivate players, and it is even more amazing how in a short period of time he manages to create and truly unite and commit his players as a collective. He achieves this with 4 measures, which you will have the opportunity to see soon at Manchester United. All players who are absolutely not available to accept their game model, new behaviours and new positions in which they will play will be dismissed as soon as possible. All elements outside the technical team and players will be placed completely aside from what happens in training and physical preparation. Players will be asked not to share any information with their agents, PR teams that manage players' careers, and social networks will be prohibited from obtaining or sharing any relevant information. The squad will spend a lot of time on training at the club's facilities and on their days off as well until the team starts winning, and then that will be reduced. Any sign of displeasure from the players or their agents will accelerate their departure in the medium term. That's really interesting then, because we know United leak like a sieve, and what it's saying there is that Amorim's game model is so repetitive and so, you know, one-dimensional in the sense once you know it, you know it. He doesn't want agents or PR teams or people leaking information or talking about what they do. Amorim will always tell the players the truth. He will be very direct and sometimes harsh, but the players know from the first moment until the end that he will not be deceived, isolated, ignored, or unprotected. Amorim is a man with a great sense of humour, used to being the comedian on duty, the centre of all pranks. Don't confuse laughing and joking with the lack of work. He's a fan of very high-intensity training. 95% of his players' injuries originate in training and not in games. Therefore, it can be said that Amorim's greatest talent is building teams that are highly motivated to work in training or in games, having players perfectly adapted to their roles, and above all, players who believe that with him as a manager, they will play better, win more games, and reach higher heights in their careers. Amorim is much more of a great collective motivator with a model built by repetition than a coach who brings new approaches, who surpasses other coaches tactically. I mean, there's a little bit more in there, but I've read that 3 times now, and I've enjoyed it every bloody time. If even 50% of that is true, it's fascinating. And what comes across with that is relentlessly hard work around a system that he is absolutely focused and has belief in, that the players have to learn, and if they don't learn or they moan, they'll be gone. And what you end up with is a collective that is all working together for one goal, instead of individualism or adaptability that breeds incompetence at Manchester United, I suppose. So it'd be very interesting. I'm sorry, how are we okay up front? Our strikers don't score goals, and you can say they don't service Bruno, but Zirkzee put through Sunday and he caught by the centre-back. Neither Rasmus or Zirkzee are known as clinical. Sean, I don't know whether you're Samuel Luckhurst in real life, but I don't know what to say to you, Sean. I mean, it's been mentioned about 6 times across the last 12 months. Unfortunately, we don't create chances for our striker. Rasmus has had less shots on goal this season than Ahmad and Zirkzee, and his conversion rate is in the top 5 in the league, and it was the same last year. Until you start giving Rasmus the chances that a striker is worth, you can't judge him as a striker, because his conversion rate is actually very good for the breadcrumbs he gets given. Zirkzee's something else. I don't even know why you'd compare the two. A clean slate is not the same as promising to get the best out of certain players. As long as nobody's safe, a clean slate could be good, says Hatlingen. Did you see the disrespect the Sky reporter gave Amorim in a recent press conference? Same guy that hounded Ten Hag when he first came through the door. Very demanding when he's not given quotes to clip up, says Robbo96. Yeah, we spoke about it last night. Absolutely disgusting. Bruno criticism is fine, but I'm also frustrated for him. He created a big chance for Rashi, chance for Garnacho, and set Zirkzee through versus Chelsea, says Lummus. Kvaratskhelia is the sort of winger that thinks to create for others before shooting, although I don't know if he's better out wide or as an inside forward, says Hader, of which we've got two positions at United. Conte did it very quickly with Chelsea, converted Moses to a right wing back in no time. Just need the players to buy in and work hard, says Rory. I think that's very relevant, isn't it? Evident. Ritwick says, hope you're well. Do you think United can finish in the top 4 this season, or is it realistic to only focus on the Europa League? Thank you for what you do. Keep ignoring the haters. Thank you very much, Ritwick. I think the Europa League will be the priority because it's more winnable and it's a pathway to the Champions League. But you know, I think we're going to be doing a lot. By the sounds of it, we're going to change the way we play and the formation we play drastically. So I think there's going to be teething problems, which I'm on board with. It sounds like Amorim can get core instructions and principles across clearly. We need better players long term, but short term, these players need simple rules that they're capable of following, says James. Yeah, and look, if you look at the game on Sunday, I think it's very, very clear that if you did, you know, play like you did on Sunday, you wouldn't be playing in the next game, because that sort of, you know, consistent misuse of the ball, etc., is clearly not going to fit in. There are a few more. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this that was sent through, so I'm sure many of you are as well. Amorim's teams win because they are more organised and aggressive, because they work harder and are more concentrated. Against teams of equal or lesser value, they will win with some ease. Against teams with more talent, equally competent, the probability of having good results decreases drastically. Soon you will be able to see a stabilisation of results, and I imagine that in one season and a half, you will only have difficulty staying ahead of Man City or Liverpool, but all of the rivals will not surpass you in the Premier League standings. This is really interesting because this is something I suspected to be true. I think that what Sporting do very well is beat the majority of teams in their league, but when they come up against teams that are better than them, the system doesn't necessarily work. It's going to be very interesting to see Sporting against Man City tonight. We're doing a watch along at 8 o'clock. But it's true. If we can start beating the teams below Man City and Liverpool, then we can slot into the top 4, which has got to be stage 1, hasn't it? Until we can bring better players in. So I'd be on board with that. One more observation. The current Man United squad doesn't seem very adaptable to Amorim's ideas. And despite what I said before about the attempts he will make, especially to find value, I think the following players will have extreme difficulties in staying on the squad under Amorim's orders. Now, these are not mine. This is what Pedro said as a Sporting fan. So he said, De Ligt is a player I'd be worried about. He doesn't have the speed or ability to hold and transport the ball required to play with a back 3. I disagree with that, but this is Pedro. Martinez, he doesn't work the offside line well, and his height is a problem. Lindelof, very limited reading the opponent's movement, too reactive and not very aggressive. Johnny Evans, non-existent holding, passing the ball. Luke Shaw misses too many games. Eriksson, inability to occupy large areas of the midfield, low defensive performance. Mount, low intensity during large periods of the game. Anthony, lack of defensive work, very selfish, difficulty associating with colleagues. Zirkzee, we've spoken about as well. So they're all players that Pedro thinks won't make it. Players that he thinks will do well. Onana, for his passing ability and good footwork. Yoro, for speed and agility, he's perfect for a back 3. Maguire, in the central position of the back 3 defenders, could have his best seasons with Amorim. But this is where I disagree, because if you think Maguire's going to work, De Ligt's better than Maguire, so I think De Ligt will work as well. Mainu, perfect midfielder for the role that Amorim likes to see in the 6 or 8. Bruno Fernandez, he will be placed on one of the wings and will be the key player in supporting the midfield. I mean, that's interesting that he thinks Bruno will be put on one of the wings. Diallo, Ahmad, for his 1v1 ability, speed and ability to travel to the centre. Højlund, if he is able to improve capacity to give depth to the attack, he could be ideal for the number 9. There we go. That to me deserves a like on the video, and Pedro deserves an applause, because I think I've learned 50% more about Amorim today, and I'm very interested to see how much of that actually comes true. But I think the stuff that really stood out to me was just what to expect from Amorim, in the sense that he is not tactically adaptable. He has his style. He's very protective of his style, and he expects the players to be protective of that. So much so that they work ridiculously hard and they don't leak. And you basically create this siege mentality, don't you, where this is the way we play. It's our way of playing, and you either do it or you get out. And if you're going to start moaning, you get out. And if you're going to start leaking, you get out. So, look, straight away, you'd see some players are going to have a problem with that if they don't get on board with it. And they're going to have to change absolutely massively, of course. But very interesting. Fuge says, good, finally we'll utilise Mainu. I think Mainu's going to work very well in it. Ritwick, welcome to the Members Club. Glazers out, says Wall. And James Cave says, yeah, I've done that one from James as well. So, yeah, very, very excited to see how it's going to play out. But, yeah, we will find out at 8 o'clock. Of course, very excited about that. Man City at Sporting tonight. It'll be a real... I mean, for Man City, it's going to be a first, because Sporting sold that whole stadium out in 1 minute. So Man City just won't be used to that sort of thing. An amazing atmosphere and people who actually want to be there. So incredible how they sold that out in a minute. His last game in the Champions League for Sporting. I'm very excited about it. I'm not expecting Sporting to win. I just want to watch how they play, how they move, and look at the passing and the system. Because if this system is just so, if he's been using this system from day one for the last few years across 3 football clubs, he's going to use it at Manchester United. We're basically going to go, to school, aren't we? We're going to go to school to learn a system that we're just going to keep doing time and time and time and time again. And individuality is going out the window for team. I think the fans will love this if we can make it work. But I think we have to expect teething problems. We have to expect when he plays Arsenal and Man City, they're probably going to beat us. Because as Pedro says, when it's up and running, it will help you beat 80% of the league. But it will still have its weaknesses against good teams until you get good players in. Well, we won't even be up and running by the time we play Arsenal and Man City, because we got them in December. So I can see bumps in the road. That's absolutely fine. Patience is a virtue. Off topic, but that Anthony tackle 1 minute in the game yesterday against Brentford was class, and the reaction to a possible red was brilliant, says VXDZ. Oh, the career mode, thank you very much. Thanks for the show, really appreciate it, says Slippin' Jimmy. Hope you're doing well, mate. And I hope you're all doing well as well. Sorry I was a little bit late today. Apologies for that. But we're back at 2 o'clock with the Pake preview, which I've done a lot of work on as well. We're moving towards that, of course. Rudy's still in charge. Would you sell Zirkzee? 50-50 in the poll, and we've had 12,000 votes. No from me. I wouldn't sell him. It's way too early. But look, it's all about opinion. Get your comments in. If you haven't watched live, get your comments in. Make sure you smash a like. I'll speak to you all a little bit later. Take care and have a great day.